Welcome to Catalyst for Healing. I'm Maria Lloyd, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm here today with a special guest. Michelle Fehlman is a relationship expert. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist for over 16 years, and she is the founder of Coastal Sage Wellness and is here to talk with us today about dating and finding the love that you want.
Yes.
So, Michelle, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Michelle Fehlman, and as you mentioned, I'm a marriage and family therapist. And really, my focus of work is around building relationships, deeper, more meaningful relationships, first with ourselves, right? Because oftentimes we spend our whole lives living out there trying to manage everything else. So I think the work is really about returning home to yourself.
Yes.
And living here and understanding and knowing what are my wants, what are my needs, and how can I bring that into the world so that I can have deeper, more meaningful connections with others. And so from that kind of mindset and space, I also created what's called experiential processing and integration. So it's a therapeutic different than talk therapy, though. It really isn't so much because, we have a lot of stories in our head. The stories really, though, are the results of our poor patterning. And most of our core patterns are wired by the age of 9, right? So I tell people it's like we upgrade fancy computers. So we have this modern tech, state of the art, say laptop with processing that's very old and outdated.
I love that
Yeah.
analogy.
And so how do we bring that processing up to date? So that's a lot of again, a lot of the work that I do is understanding the experiences and how we're holding them in the body. So rather than listening to the mind story, we're going to listen to the body story and really let the body talk and let it fully express those experiences that it wasn't able to express because maybe there wasn't enough support or you weren't safe.
Yeah.
You didn't have the resources. And so those experiences get stuck in our body and then we wire patterns around them, patterns of avoidance and deflection and all of the ways that we don't want to feel or experience those things. So the work is about gently and safely going into those spaces so that we can process them and then they can become integrated so we can be a more full self so that I can show up in life with more of me to fully experience the world around me and the people. So that's really kind of the core.
And you teach
work that I
this
do.
modality to students
I
as
do,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I work a lot with newer therapists teaching them, and I'm actually getting ready in the beginning of the year to launch a training for all therapists to be able to
Oh,
come.
awesome. I want to learn.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Well, and it'll be interesting to hear how you're using that in this program that you've developed that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think first I would love to hear, we're going to focus today because we were talking and you were like, yeah, we could go for hours and hours if we talk about everything. But today we're just going to keep the focus on dating because you're a relationship expert and we want to talk about people out there that are trying to find a partner that they can have a great relationship with and what to look for and all of that. But tell us a little bit about what brought you to this in particular, creating this program.
Yeah, sure.
And the name of the program, maybe.
Yeah. So the workshop, it's a 4-week virtual workshop. We'll be
Mhm.
starting on September 24th, and it's called Calling in Extraordinary Love.
And we're going to put it in the show notes, Calling an Extraordinary Love, because it's starting quickly in just 2 weeks. So actually by the time this airs, it'll be 1 week. So move quickly if you're interested. But I'm sure you'll do it again.
We will do it again. Yeah.
But I just love the title. So Calling an Extraordinary Love. But tell us a little of your story that brought you to create the course.
Yeah, sure. So in 2014, I got divorced after 24 years of marriage and actually 30 years in a relationship. And so you can imagine there was a
With
lot of
7 kids, right?
7 children. Yeah. So
know,
that span
cannot
of
believe
time.
that.
So yes. So my relational expertise comes from a real life living laboratory. Yeah. And so you can imagine in that time, we really patterned together.
Yeah.
And so
How old were you when you got together? Because you said 30. Oh my gosh.
yes,
I didn't realize you
16.
were that young.
Yeah. And so, I was in the
Patterning
process of
together
patterning.
in high
Right.
school.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I mean, I think it's typical in a lot of relationships, but particularly because we were so young. I was 20 when we got married and really just kind of wove in together into processes that for oftentimes weren't really resonant to me, but really about what needs to keep the peace or make sure that he was okay or my kids were okay. And so I spent many, many years kind of depleting and denying and ignoring myself because, in my life, I learned that's what a good wife and mother would do. And I think
And
there's a
this was
lot of
probably
that.
developed under 9, as you're
Yep.
talking about.
Yeah.
So what was it in your family that created this people pleaser?
I think, kind of going back to my mom, right? She was also young. So she had me at 18.
Okay.
And so she had a lot of messaging around, big mistakes and failure. And so she wanted to prove to the world that she wasn't making a mistake or that she was worthy. And so I played a lot into that of like, then that's also my role to kind of be all that people want me to be all that I'm supposed to be and meet the needs of the people around me for that.
Those models for you, you're
Yeah,
absorbing it in your nervous system, right?
exactly.
And this then became a pattern that you played out when you started dating.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then we're together for 30
Yeah.
years.
I mean, dating at 16, I don't know how much that's dating.
What is your opinion about this? Because I can see how some people come together like very young in high school, start dating and they're married and they're still doing really well. And then there's other situations that really, it doesn't go well. And I mean, in my mind, partly like the development of self doesn't really happen until our late 20s. So it's almost like you are getting married and either you develop that sense of self separately together or you become very enmeshed. I mean, what do you think that is in terms of what makes it work for some and not others?
I mean, I think, right, it kind of goes back to our patterning, our conditioning, our family relationships, where I think when we grow up in homes where differentiation or expressing yourself, having your needs, wants, and opinions valued and invited into the conversations is really kind of early learning for healthy relationships.
Yes.
But when we come from homes where we aren't getting our needs met for whatever reason and we're looking for something outside of ourselves, I think we're not, and when you're 16, I mean, I can't speak for other 16-year-olds, but what do you know when you're 16?
Totally. I think you know everything,
No
but
offense to
you
the
don't.
16-year-olds out there, but
Right.
and so I think it's, a lot of it has to do with your family of origin and how you learn to be in the world. Are you able to articulate what you want and need? Are you good at holding boundaries?
Yeah.
Those are really wonderful relationship qualities that not all of us learn when we're young. Certainly,
Yeah.
I did not learn those things. What I learned about relationships is, are you okay? Then I'm okay.
Yes.
So if you're not
I love
okay,
that. That's
I have to make you okay so that I'm okay. And that I think that patterning I see in
so
so
many
many
people. You just
relationships. Yeah.
described it so perfect.
Right. Because it's this the way that we decide how we are is outside of us.
Yeah.
And we don't learn to gauge how we are based on the inside of us.
Yeah.
And so I think, really that's where it starts,
Right.
is shifting that so that you can start to know, wait a minute, am I okay here?
Yes.
And so many people, and I work with a lot of people, don't have the skills to do that.
No, I know.
Yeah.
One of the things I notice is like, let's say neither of them learn these skills in their families. Oftentimes, maybe it's one person that decides to go to therapy and then the other partner is not willing to. And that's where the imbalance
Sure.
starts to happen because one's getting healthier, but they feel like they're like pulling someone along.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you didn't come from that history, it's like both of you commit. And I tell people this, like, doing the individual work is so critical. And just popping into couples therapy, you can learn the communication
Mhm.
skills, but you're not going to be, unless you have a really skilled couples therapist going deeply with your individual stuff, you're not going to be able to repair what's at the
Right.
core. And so I think if both people are really committed in doing the work, then maybe they can both heal together in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I have a client right now who's doing beautiful work and her husband is doing beautiful work. And together they're really weaving and creating something new for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's really beautiful. That's not always the case,
Right.
right? And for example, certainly in my experience, as I started to do this work and really dig in, and before I was a therapist, if you would have asked me like, "Oh, how is your life?" and I would have thought, "Oh, wow, my relationships are so lovely," because what was representative of that was that we didn't fight, and everybody was happy and everybody was doing well, and that was true. Everybody but me.
Right. But you didn't even know it at the time,
No,
right?
and what awareness I had rather than really kind of understanding, I'm not doing well, it's I must be doing something wrong
Right.
because I don't feel the way that I want to feel or I imagine I'm supposed to feel. And so the gauge again was always kind of like everything out there is okay because I made sure to manage all of that really well.
Yeah.
But inside felt very empty and alone. And then shamed myself for that because here's this beautiful life. How in the world,
So at what point did you start realizing I don't feel good and it's because of the marriage?
Yeah. I mean, I think really when so I didn't come into this field till a little bit later. I was in I was 36 when I came to the field. And
Okay.
so you go into a counseling field and you start learning what healthy relationships look like.
Right. It
I
was
st-
eye-opening.
I started to kind of go, well, wait a minute. What do you mean this isn't the way it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
And so I started to really kind of see things differently. And then just in my own personal development and growth, I went to a training institute for about 13 years to learn a particular modality. And much of that modality is about self-awareness and understanding your processes and patterns. And that was really painful and hard to uncover. And so, but that's where I started to realize, wow, there's all of these things that we do that we really don't have any awareness of
Yeah.
because we've just been doing it for so long. And that's
Right.
where I started to kind of find this interest in relational patterns and how they impact our lives and how we hold ourselves back and we ignore or dismiss and deny ourselves because we have all these belief systems wrapped around that. And how really that we just live at so much less than our potential to live, having the relationships and the connections that we desire. So that's kind of what motivated me to start doing more of this work and shifting this work.
Yeah. So what happened after you left in terms of like at what point did you start wanting to date and then how did that process go? And then what led you to create this course?
Yeah. So obviously I got married young, so I didn't have a lot of dating
Dating
experience.
experience, I guess.
And so, once I kind of settled into, oh, this is what's happening in my life,
Yeah. Got
okay,
through the shock and the grief and
kind of a shock. Even though, I think the more shock was that I was so used to living my life in a certain way, and now I was living a different way. And so, in adjusting to that, and then decided, well, what do you do as an adult woman? I was in my 40s, my late 40s, and it's like, well, what do I do? How do you do this? And so went on some dating apps and started dating. And what I started finding was that I just kept dating the same person. Even though I was like, I'm going to date somebody who's like in an entirely different field, looks different, it grew up different. All the things I tried to find the different, but I kept finding the same thing: emotional unavailability or um, a need for like caretaker to be, for
Mhm.
for me to be a caretaker. So I would say that either people are totally emotionally unavailable or like really clingy. And I was like, I don't want either one of those
Right.
things, but yet I kept finding that. So I realized I kept finding kind of the same person. And then I kept doing the same thing, which was, this isn't what I was really looking for, but this is okay. And this is okay. And I realized I just started doing this thing that I do, which is talk myself out of my own needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, sometimes all the self awareness.
Putting it in practice is a whole different thing.
Right. And
Well,
so,
and again, how did the discomfort when your nervous system is used to acting in this way, there's so much discomfort
yeah.
to step out of that and stand up for yourself and ask for what you need and do it differently. And it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. Blah.
Yeah. So
I,
through these experiences, you were starting to figure out, okay, I'm I'm creating the same patterns.
yeah.
And then at what point were you like, how do I stop this and shift that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was about a year and a half in, and I just thought, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I
Yeah.
also was coming to a point where I was thinking, okay, I think I'm ready to start being open to a relationship.
Mhm.
And I knew that however it had been going for the last year and a half, it wasn't going to bode well for me.
Yeah.
So I committed to really turning inward and figuring out what could I do for a different outcome? And so that really is where this whole calling and extraordinary love came from. And where it started with is I started thinking to myself, what kind of love do I want? And I was thinking, well, you know what I want? I don't want ordinary love
Yeah.
or, um, I don't want, and I certainly don't want any kind of a relationship where I am not showing up in this full, bright, vibrant version of me that I worked so hard
Yes.
to return to.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, well, you know what I want? I had this thought one day. I want the kind of love that the stars stop and take notice.
Mm,
I want
that.
extraordinary love. I want extraordinary. I want it to be dynamic and alive. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to dream, I might as well dream big,
Yeah.
and I encourage women, dream big because this is your life.
Yeah.
These are your relationships. And so I kind of just started with, all right, I'm going to call into my life extraordinary love. And so understanding kind of, all right, how do you even do that? Right.
Right.
And so I really just started with, well, the first thing is you have to believe that you deserve it. And so I started practices that really helped me believe that I deserve extraordinary love.
That's such a great grounding to start with.
Yeah, right? Because if you don't deserve it, then the rest of this is
You're
okay.
not gonna draw it in,
Yeah.
first of all, but
Yeah.
yeah, that is, I mean,
And you'll
which
sabotage it.
you'll sabotage it, but I mean, again, like, at the source, we have to love ourselves completely in order to have a good relationship with someone else,
Yes.
because you can only love another person as much as you love yourself too.
Exactly. And if I think I mentioned this earlier. I was thinking about this way over there. We always think, oh, I'm gonna find somebody who's gonna prove me wrong about myself. Like if I don't think
Right.
I'm good enough or I'm worthy enough, I'm gonna go find this person who's gonna help me know that I'm worthy enough. But the reality is we don't usually find the people that prove us wrong. We find the people that prove us right.
That's such a good
You
point.
know? So if I don't believe that I am worthy of something extraordinary, or if I don't believe that I am worth showing up for or connecting with, or I don't have anything to bring, then I'm going to find people that prove that correct for me
Yeah.
because we'll always find what we're looking for.
Yes.
You know, perhaps we change what we're looking for. And so really, yeah, just started there. It's funny, so I'm remarried to definitely my extraordinary love.
I love that. We have a happy ending.
Yeah, at our wedding, some of my good friends got up and spoke, and they were reminiscing on how, we'd be driving in the car, and I would just shout, "I deserve extraordinary love."
That is so awesome.
So,
How long after that you did this process with yourself that you're, teaching in the course, did he show up, or
yeah.
how did you guys meet?
Yeah, it was about 6 months, actually.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so 6 months of me really putting these practices into play, and yeah, and then I remember too, so I was in a deprivation tank. Have you ever done the deprivation tanks?
I've
Like
never
float
done.
tanks?
I have done the float
Yeah,
tanks. Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I was in a float
Those are
tank.
cool.
Super cool, right?
Yeah, it's
It's because
very relaxing.
everything is just you. It's just you with you. And I can remember I was in there and I was like, okay, I deserve extraordinary love. And then I would like tell myself all the reasons why that wasn't true. And they say, no, okay, I do. I deserve extraordinary love. And then I would tell myself all the reasons why that wasn't true. And this went on for 45 minutes, just grappling with
Wow.
myself. And finally I threw my arms out and I said, okay, fine. I deserve extraordinary love, and just surrender to that belief. It was so amazing. There was like these kind of colors on the top of the tank, and they just kind of came down towards me.
Wow.
And I had this sense of like this love is coming to me and coming towards me. It's not something I have to chase or find, but when you're open to it, it will find its way to you.
And that is an amazing position to be in, because a lot of people go into dating with that desperate feeling. So explain how that shifts that experience.
Yeah. Well, I think, and this was a lot of my own personal work, because when you don't think that you deserve it, you have to go cultivate it.
Yes.
You have to create it. You have to go and do something about it. And I kept having that impulse to do that, and then would say to myself, no, like when you deserve it, it will come to you. When you really believe love is for you, then you don't have to go and chase it. And that was really a lot of the work. So a lot of these practices actually came from the space of how do I anchor myself? How do I support myself? So I'm not doing that. So
Yeah.
I'm not moving out with a desperation because again, like calls in like, and not wanting to put that kind of energy out into the world
Yeah.
and really ground myself in believing it, and then what I call creating a new familiar,
Yeah.
because your body is familiar and your mind loves familiar, right? So we look for familiar because it's less work for the brain, right? And it And the nervous system thinks it's safe to have familiar, even if
Mhm.
that familiar is dysregulating or uncomfortable. And so creating a new familiar, believing it,
Yeah.
but then also really, how do I create something new so my body can allow for new experiences?
But not to say don't try, right? Like in terms of, because I could see, because I work with clients who are dating and they're like either like forcing it out there, trying so hard, or they do nothing. And so, like, how did you find that in between space where, you didn't shut yourself in your house expecting someone to show up at the door?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
Like, how did you experience something more balanced in that?
Again, I think as I was working these different practices out, I was, so I like to say, that one thing that's kind of positive about dating is it gives you an opportunity to try new things.
That's true.
And so, and oftentimes when I work with women, and they might go on a date where they're like, oh, I'm not sure. And I said, well, then that's great. It's low risk. Use it as an opportunity to try some new things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kind of took that with myself. Like it's low risk.
Well, then you can learn something
Then I
from
can
each
just try new
experience
things
too,
on. Yeah,
right?
I can try on how is it
Mhm.
when I show up in this way? And, whatever happened on the other side, that happens on the other side. But it really was more about how am I going to start to create a me that stays true to me?
Yes.
Because that's really the work. It's really not about the other person. It's about
Yeah.
how do I show up and stay true to me,
Right.
stay authentic to me? How do I pay attention to what resonates with me and what doesn't resonate with me?
Mhm.
How do I stay really clear about what I want? And I think that's the practice. And when you're able to do that, you're much better able, it kind of shifts that from, wait a minute, oh, wait, you don't like me? I should adapt to something that will make
Yes.
you like me to, I know what I want, need. This is not a fit. This isn't resonant for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah. I like that.
and it's so I just kind of started practicing that.
And it's a different energy showing up as I'm also here to see if you're the right fit for me, not
Right.
seeing, do they like me? What's wrong with
Right.
me? Going in with a different mindset
Yes.
is huge
Yes.
because
Yeah.
then you're also maintaining, like, this is who I'm going to, all your job is to show up authentically.
Yeah.
Right? And see if it's just like with the friendships, right? We don't wanna adapt to people. We wanna see, is that gonna be the right fit for me?
Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because during that 6 month time, I kind of just kept hearing this voice say, which was also, so it was like, he's already here. Like you don't have to fight for it. So that was part of that,
Okay.
not having to go and be something. He's already here. And I remember like, what does that even mean? Right. So then I started, going to my local Starbucks. Maybe he's at Starbucks or walking around my neighborhood,
Right.
and I just kept hearing the message like, when you believe it, he will be here. You don't have to do all these things
Yeah.
to make it happen.
Yeah.
Really show up as your full self.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, actually we worked together and I had
Oh,
known him for 5 years, but he was married and I was married when we first met. And then I got divorced. And then a few years later, he got divorced and we knew each other, which was really lovely. So we were already, had some context for each other. And so, yeah. And so it wouldn't have been somebody I would have imagined
yeah.
because it just wasn't,
It was an option.
it wasn't an option.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was an option. And I was like, I would have never imagined. And yet it was perfect. And
Oh, I love
as
that.
I spent a lot of time visioning what I wanted because that's the other pieces you have to be really clear about what you want. And rather than kind of trying to fit somebody into what I want, was allowing for somebody who already fit, who's already there. And it's really funny because, I would like to say that I was so I had so much faith and patience that I just sat quietly and let this beautiful thing unfold. And he just showed up at my door. I would like to say that's how it went,
Yeah.
but it was not. It was me fighting and grappling and, pushing through those old patterns and hearing that voice and saying, yeah, but what can I do about this? And
So
so,
let's talk about the other piece you just mentioned. So visioning, what you want.
right.
Okay, this can come all across the board. I mean, I got clients that come in and their lists are like super specific about things that aren't that important. And it's like, what do you recommend people focus on in terms of, I mean, values, or what are
Yeah.
the things that you really should focus on and what you want?
Yeah. So what I tell people is part of this program actually is we create our 5 non-negotiables.
Okay.
Because if you come in with this big long list, I mean, that's great. I'm all about wants and needs,
Yeah.
but you can limit yourself because sometimes you don't know you might want something that you haven't experienced yet.
I like that.
So if it's so limited, then there can be things that you just don't know you want yet or you don't know you like. So, I usually invite people to it's nice to have that kind of framework, but let's bring it in a little bit. So the thing I like about the 5 non-negotiables is that these are your non-negotiables. Everything else we can talk about, but when you have those 5 non-negotiables, it really helps you ground yourself and not do this, well, like it's not exactly this, but it could be this, right?
Yeah.
Which is where I was finding myself. And so for me, my 5 non-negotiables where I needed somebody like really strong in themselves, could really hold themselves, and somebody tender. And that's a hard balance to find, somebody who can be really strong and bold and tender. And that was important to me because I wanted somebody who had that kind of range. As somebody who was attentive, I spent a lot of my life feeling not well, ignored. So I wanted somebody who was attentive, somebody who is had to be passionate about something. Doesn't matter what, but you got to be passionate about something.
Yeah.
And then adventurous because I like to go be out in the world. And so those were my 5 non-negotiables.
That-
The other things like what you do for a living or, all of those other things, like your food preferences, those are workable things. But to really kind of distill it down to what are the 5 things that I'm not going to negotiate on. And I think that really kind of helps you ground in that space. And so that's one of the things we're going to work on in the course is figuring out what are your 5 non-negotiables.
Yeah. What do you think about attractiveness, like sexual energy, in terms of, because people place that as like really, really high often when they're dating?
Sure.
Like, what do you say to people if they had a great conversation with someone and they just didn't feel that chemistry? Like, is there a possibility that chemistry could grow, or what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because I mean, well, let's just say there's chemistry that can just come from straight attraction,
Yeah.
right? And it's just we're attracted to each other and there's chemistry. And that's fun and can be super enjoyable, but that's not always long term sustainable.
Yes.
Right? Because that's just oftentimes based on physical attraction or pheromones or right,
Right.
all the things. Whereas I think there's the other kind of chemistry that comes from deep, authentic connection.
Yes.
Right? That when you're really showing up as your authentic self, you're sharing from a place that is really true to you. There's something that really creates chemistry in that space,
Yes.
connection in that space, which is a different kind of chemistry and connection, but it's I think, very powerful, very beautiful. It's like when my husband and I have really deep, honest conversations, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, what's up?" Right? Because it's the the sharing of the inside of yourself, it's the vulnerability that really on it, because I believe like connection is our core human need
Yeah.
outside of breath.
Right.
And so when we feel that connection, it meets such a need that all we want to do is to come together and be connected
Yeah.
even more and to
Yeah.
create more vulnerability. So I think it's a really powerful way to create chemistry and connection, and this is the thing in relationships. And I work with a lot of people is we show up in a way that we think the other person wants or needs. And that actually dilutes connection.
100%.
Right? But we're scared.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that we actually want. I so desperately want to connect with you that I'm going to show up in whatever version I think you want and need.
Yeah.
And then I'm not getting the connection I want. So I think, oh, it's because I'm not showing up good enough or I'm not sexy enough or pretty enough or smart enough or I'm not enough. That's why I'm not getting the connection I want and need. But the reality is it's just that you aren't showing up with enough of you.
Yes.
And so when we show up with more of ourselves and we show up authentically with the good, bad, and the ugly, there's something about the human spirit that is so attracted to that I think that's really where long-term sustainable chemistry comes from, is on doing the deep work and having honest conversations, which a lot of people don't like that answer. Right.
And so I mean, I tell people it's, if there's a connection, that soul connection or authentic connection where you feel like you're being yourself, they're being themselves. If there's any sense of that, like give it another shot,
Yeah.
because oftentimes that initial attraction, again, I mean, this happens so much where people are dating the most attractive person and then they can quickly become very unattractive.
Absolutely.
Based on how they're treating you. So it's like it can obviously go in the other direction where there's that soul connection. And so, I mean, that person just becomes more and more beautiful
Yeah.
because of that. And so, I just wanted to throw that out there because that is
Yeah.
a misnomer with dating. I feel like, especially with the app generation, everyone's judging and clicking X because of
Yeah.
appearance. And that's very sad to me
Yeah.
because it's only in person that you're going to be able to experience
Yeah.
what that relationship could be.
Yeah. And I think, and I work with a lot of single women, and single men.
Yeah.
And the one thing I always share is show up as yourself. because
Yes.
because if you don't, then if you're holding back the parts that are true about you because you want the next date or the next date, you're going to be 3, 4, 5 dates in, and now you're going to be like, oh no, if he really knows me, if he really understood me, if he really knew the real me, and then it actually creates this cycle of anxiety and lack.
Yeah.
Now you don't want to show up because you're afraid. I always tell people, show up as your real self. I think a lot in dating, we have this idea that we have to put on a mask, right? I have to put on a mask so that, you'll like me or you approve of me, or for safety, right? I don't really know you, um, or like you have to prove something to me first, or whatever, for whatever the reason
Yeah.
is, we put on a mask. And so I like to tell people, and they say, well, I'm not going to just like tell them everything. I said, well, great, because that's not healthy.
Right.
Please don't do that.
Yes.
However, I like to think of it as more of like, like, oh my gosh, why can't I think of an iceberg, right? The iceberg analogy you always see with the water line, right? And that you're just kind of showing a little bit of yourself, but the little bit that you're showing is authentic and true.
Yes.
And then as you know the person, you pull that water line down and you show a little more, show a little more, and you show a little more. And as you know them, you show more, but everything you show is true and authentic versus I'm going to have the mask on until I trust you, and then I'm going to take the mask off.
Yeah.
The reality is that won't work
No.
because again, once the mask is on, then you're going to be too afraid that if I take it off, you won't like me. And anytime we hold ourselves back, we're giving information to our body that we're not safe. So the mask itself is actually making you feel unsafe
Yeah.
because,
Totally.
yeah, you're telling yourself, this isn't safe here.
Yeah.
When I can show up and show what's authentic to me, just a little, right? I don't know you.
Right.
But what I am going to show you is going to be true and authentic to me.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to feel safe. And then from a place of safety, I can gauge, do I actually like you?
Yes.
Am I attracted to you?
Right.
Because I'm not in the space of unsafety, so worried that you're going to abandon me or
Totally.
reject, whatever. And so it really benefits us to show up.
And that makes dating so much less scary, right?
Right.
Because you're coming in and just being like, I'm showing up. We're going to see how this feels rather than, yeah, like you said, the mask and then focus on what they're thinking of you. I mean,
Right.
that is so draining.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then at what point do you let somebody know what's truly you? And
Exactly.
and if you're not showing up with all of you, then how do you have the resources to actually gauge and identify, does this feel resonant to me?
Yes.
So I'm all about showing up authentically.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the work, even in this workshop as well, is who is authentic?
Yes.
Because for some of us, it's been so long that we've spent any time with her, we don't even know who she is.
Well, and again, people do that work before you even do the course because I mean, this is the other thing is people they get out of these long relationships. They immediately jump into dating.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people to take a year to like get to know yourself again because you're a different person than you were before you got married. I mean, you're like figuring out who you are all over again. And it's such a beautiful time to take
Yeah.
that in. And then when you have that sense of self really solidified, then you're ready to do this kind of work.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think and I'll tell people sometimes it's all about your intention too, right?
Yes.
If your intention is, well, I'm just going to start dating because, I want something to do on a Friday night versus I haven't done any kind of reflection or work and I'm going to go out into the world and look for another relationship. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really taking some time to really know and understand, what do I want? What do I need? What am I ready for? What am I ready to be open to? What am I not ready to be open to?
Well, and the pattern piece. So, like you said, if you don't do the work to understand what were your patterns in this relationship, you're going to jump into things that are just familiar again, and they're going to recreate the same dynamics.
Absolutely. And I think one of the reasons that really motivated me to do this work also was I had just seen so many of my friends go through a breakup and jump into a relationship because they didn't want to be alone.
Yes.
And well, but he's so different because again, maybe looks different, sounds different.
And there's always a honeymoon period. So it might look different at the beginning.
Yeah. And then it ends up being the same. And then, and I felt so sad for these women. And then, but then there's a lot of pride that's like, well, now I don't want to look like I made the wrong choice. And so then they stay.
Yes.
And I've just watched this happen to so many women. And I really committed to myself and said, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And it wasn't easy because
You are lonely.
there was
Yeah.
I really wanted to
Right.
be like comforted and you know, I just knew I had just seen that play out in too many lives. You know. And then on the other side, there also was work around. So after you go through the course and you call in your extraordinary love, then there's work around actually allowing. I think that's the part too. Allowing extraordinary love. Because I also had to do a lot of work on now that I actually have what I want. Oh, you know,
Right.
and having to really do the work on allowing love to come in and trusting that it would be safe. So then there was a lot of work right around trusting and believing that this is safe, and so grateful to have a partner who was just in that with me and was so open to giving me the space and the time to
Develop
work
that
in that
too.
space with him and not to take it personally, but to have an understanding of, yeah, I can see why it's hard for you to trust that this is real and safe. And so, you know, I told you, I was saying, I want a relationship that's like that, a love that's so great the stars take notice is what I would tell myself. Like, I just wanted, that's where I think the extraordinary came from. Like,
Yes.
really expansive. And when we were first, we'd been together, but we were serious, you know, serious, like, okay, like, this is a serious thing. You know, it was about a year in and, a little over a year, like knew that this was okay. This is my person. This is serious. And I started waking up in the middle of the night, like, oh my gosh, like this is a real thing. You know, like what?
This is what I wanted, but oh my gosh, I'm scared.
Like all this talk about extraordinary love. And I'm telling you, every night I would wake up and there would be these two stars right in alignment, like right there in my window.
Reminding you.
And they would just say, yeah, this is everything that is for you. And this is a gift for you. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd go back to sleep, you know. And then a few nights later I'd wake up and there they would be. And this went on for months that these stars would just show up in my window when I would wake up at night. So I
For you and
like,
remind you, you don't have to be afraid that we actually did this for you.
it's actually all okay. And
I love hearing your story.
Yeah.
And I mean, just again, using it to create this course and wanting to help other people to have a healthy process with this and all your experience as a therapist bringing into that, you know, even with the experiential part that you have all your training in. Anyway, we could talk for hours because this is like a great topic and I'm super fascinated to hear more. And we're going to put links in the show notes so that people can visit your website, get more information, and find a way if they want to contact you. You're just licensed in California or are you licensed in other states?
I am licensed in California, Colorado, Arizona, and Utah.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, she's licensed in several states. But we are going to, make sure that we have the notes for the course because if you're interested in that, sign up really quickly.
Yeah.
Even though we know you'll probably have another one coming.
Yep, definitely.
But thank you so much just for sharing your story and being so open about your experiences and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's an
Thank you for having me.
inspiration.
It's been fun. I love hopefully inspiring people to just be open to extraordinary love because it's out there and it wants to come towards you. I really believe that. So yeah, very exciting.
I know.
Thank you.
It's exciting. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week at Catalyst for
Bye.
Healing. Bye. Oh, wow.